My son James stood in my living room, holding papers for a $500,000 house. "You're paying for it, Dad," he said, like I was his servant. I gave him my life, and now he and his wife are suing me. But they don't know I'm ready to tear their world apart to reclaim my dignity. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The front door creaked open, letting in a gust of January chill. James stood there, his navy coat speckled with snow, clutching a manila envelope. Emma hovered behind him, her lips pursed, a designer scarf draped over her shoulders. My living room, with its faded green couch and scuffed coffee table, felt smaller under their gaze. I hadn't seen them in months, not since Thanksgiving when Emma complained about my tasteless turkey. Now, here they were, unannounced. "Dad," James said, his voice flat, like he was reading a script. "We need to talk." He tossed the envelope onto the table. It landed with a soft thud, papers spilling halfway out. I froze, my coffee mug warm in my hands, the steam curling up like a question mark. "What's this?" I asked, setting the mug down. My eyes flicked to Emma. She was scrolling on her phone, her manicured nails glinting under the lamplight. She didn't look up. James crossed his arms. "It's a lawsuit. $520,000. You're covering our mortgage." I blinked, my chest tightening. "What are you talking about? I never signed anything." Emma snorted, finally glancing at me. "Oh, please, John. Don't play dumb. You owe us. You've been sitting on your savings forever, living like," she waved a hand at the room, her diamond ring catching the light. "Like this." My jaw clenched. The air felt thick, heavy with their entitlement. I stepped toward the table, my slippers scuffing the worn carpet, and picked up the papers. The words plaintiff, James and Emma Kelly burned into my vision. My own son. Suing me. For a house I'd never seen, a debt I didn't owe. "James," I said, my voice low, "explain this." "Now." He shrugged, like it was nothing. "You promised to help us, Dad. Years ago. Said you'd always have our back. Well, we need it now. The bank's breathing down our necks." "Promised?" I snapped, my hands shaking. "I paid for your college, your first car, your damn wedding. And now this?" Emma laughed, sharp and cold. "You call that help? You've lived like a loser your whole life, John. Hoarding money while we're trying to build something real. Time to step up." Her words hit like a slap. I gripped the papers, the edges crumpling. A memory flashed, James at 5, grinning as I pushed him on a swing, his laughter echoing in a park long gone. Now, that boy was gone, replaced by this stranger in a tailored coat, demanding my life savings. "Get out," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. James raised an eyebrow. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't optional. We'll see you in court." He turned, his boots thudding on the hardwood. Emma followed, her heels clicking, not once looking back. The door slammed shut. The silence was deafening. I stood there, the papers heavy in my hands, my eyes drifting to a photo on the mantel, James at 10, holding a soccer trophy, me beaming beside him. My throat burned. I'd given him everything, every late shift, every missed vacation, every dream I'd buried. And now this. I sank onto the couch, the springs creaking under me. The lawsuit stared up from the table, a betrayal in black and white. Emma's words echoed, "A loser." My pulse pounded, not just with pain, but with something sharper. Anger. They thought they could break me, take everything, and walk away clean. They were wrong. I stood, the papers still in my grip, and crossed to the window. Their car's taillights faded into the snowy night. The cold pressed against the glass, but inside me, something was burning. I looked back at the photo of James, its frame dusty from years of neglect. Everything I thought I knew about my son crumbled to ash. The living room was too quiet after they left. The papers lay crumpled on the table, but I couldn't touch them again. Not yet. My eyes drifted to the mantel. to that same photo of James. His grin, gap-toothed and bright, felt like a lie. I crossed the room, my socks silent on the carpet, and picked it up. Dust coated my fingers. When had I stopped cleaning it? I sank into the armchair, the photo heavy in my hands. The frame was cheap, bought at a drugstore decades ago. My thumb brushed over the glass, and a memory flickered. 1987, James's first soccer game. I'd worked a double shift at the accounting firm, my eyes burning, just to make it to the field on time. He'd scored, and I'd cheered until my throat hurt. That night, he'd drawn me a picture, a stick-figure dad with a cape. My hero, he'd scrawled. The photo slipped, nearly falling. I caught it, my chest tight. The past pulled me under. I set the frame down and reached for the bookshelf, where an old cigar box hid among tattered novels. Inside were letters, receipts, pieces of a life I'd built for him. A yellowed check, $12,000 for his college tuition, paid in 2005. I'd skipped a new car for myself to cover it. A birthday card from James at 16, "Thanks for everything, Dad. You're the best." My hand shook as I read it. When had he stopped meaning it? I stood, pacing the room, the floorboards creaking. Another memory hit. 1993, James's first car. I'd wanted to travel, see Europe, maybe Rome. Instead, I bought him a used Honda, handing him the keys with a smile. He'd hugged me, but his eyes were already on the road, eager to leave. I'd told myself it was worth it. Then came Emma. I found a photo from their engagement dinner, 2015, tucked in the box. James was laughing, his arm around her. Emma's smile was tight, her eyes scanning my modest dining room, peeling wallpaper, mismatched chairs. "Cozy," she'd said, her tone dripping with judgment. That night, she'd whispered to James, loud enough for me to hear, "He could have done better than this dump." I'd pretended not to notice. The box tipped, spilling papers onto the rug. I knelt, gathering them, and found a receipt from 2008, James's wedding. I drained my savings for it, $30,000, because he'd wanted a big venue. Emma had insisted on a live band, crystal centerpieces. I hadn't complained. But at the reception, James barely spoke to me, too busy posing for photos. Emma had thanked me with a curt nod, her diamond earrings glinting. I shoved the receipt back, my jaw tight. The memories weren't sweet anymore, they were sharp, cutting. Every sacrifice, every choice I'd made for him, had led to those papers on my table. I crossed to the kitchen, needing air, but the house felt like a cage. My coffee mug sat cold on the counter. I grabbed it, then stopped. A stain had spread across the rug, a splash from earlier, when I dropped the mug during their visit. It looked like blood. I returned to the armchair, my pulse loud in my ears. James hadn't always been this way. As a boy, he'd clung to me, begged for bedtime stories. But somewhere at college, maybe, or when Emma's claws sank in, he'd changed. The greed was there, waiting, and I'd been too blind to see it. Enough. I stood, the cigar box still open, its contents a map of my mistakes. I wasn't that man anymore, the one who'd give everything and ask for nothing. They thought they could take my dignity, my savings, my life. They'd underestimated me. I pulled my phone from my pocket, the screen cold against my fingers. My thumb hovered over the contacts, scrolling past old colleagues, neighbors, until it stopped on a name, Mary Thompson, attorney. I'd met her years ago, a friend of a friend, sharp and kind. Her card was still in my wallet, tucked away for a day I'd never imagined. I stared at the screen, my anger no longer a weight but a spark. I wasn't their victim. Not anymore. The rain pelted my windshield as I drove into Chicago, the city's skyline blurred by gray. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale. The lawsuit papers sat in my jacket pocket, their weight heavier than the folder itself. I'd called Mary Thompson that morning, my voice steady despite the knot in my gut. "I need help," I'd said. She'd replied, "Come at 10. Now, it was 9:55, and my heart pounded like I was 20 again, facing my first tax audit. I parked near her office, a brick building squeezed between a deli and a bank. The elevator was slow, its hum loud in the silence. I checked my reflection in the metal doors, gray hair thinning, lines deeper than I remembered. But my eyes burned with something new. Resolve. Mary's office was on the 5th floor. I hesitated at the door, her name etched in gold on the glass. My fingers brushed the papers in my pocket. James's voice echoed, "You're paying, Dad." I pushed the door open. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and books. Mary stood behind a wooden desk, her dark hair pulled back, a navy blazer sharp against her frame. She was younger than me, mid-50s, but her eyes held a weight that matched mine. "John," she said, her smile warm but direct. "Sit." "Coffee?" I nodded, easing into a leather chair. "Black, thanks." She poured from a pot, handing me a mug. Her desk was neat, files stacked, a single orchid in a pot, a photo of a golden retriever by her laptop. "So," she said, settling across from me, "tell me what's going on." I pulled out the papers, sliding them across the desk. "My son, James, and his wife, Emma. They're suing me. $520,000. For a mortgage I never agreed to." Mary's brow furrowed as she scanned the documents. "This is bold," she muttered, her pen tapping the page. "No signature from you. No cosign. Just their word against yours." "They say I promised," I said, my voice tight. "Years ago. That I'd always help. But this," I leaned forward, my hands clenching. "They're trying to bleed me dry." Mary set the papers down, her gaze steady. "Why now? What's their angle?" I exhaled, the memory of Emma's sneer flashing. "They live big. Big house, big cars, big debts. James is in sales, but he spends like a king. Emma's worse, she's obsessed with looking perfect. They think I'm an easy mark." She nodded, jotting a note. "And you? What do you want, John?" I paused, the question catching me. What did I want? Not just to win, not just to stop them. "I want them to regret this," I said, my voice low. "They betrayed me. Took my life's work and spit on it. I want my dignity back." Mary leaned back, a spark in her eyes. "Good. Because they think you'll roll over. They're wrong." She tapped her pen again, thoughtful. "I've seen this before. People like them, greedy, careless, they leave trails. We'll find it." "You think we can win?" I asked, my throat dry. "I think we can do more than win," she said, a hint of a smile. "But it won't be easy. They're banking on you giving up. You ready to fight?" For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. "I'm ready." She slid a contract toward me. "Then let's start. I'll need everything: emails, texts, any promises they claim you made. We'll dig into their finances, their story. If they're lying, we'll prove it." I signed, my hand steady. Mary's confidence was contagious, like a spark catching dry wood. She stood, walking me to the door. "One more thing," she said, her tone softer. "I've been through something like this. Not a lawsuit, but betrayal. It hurts. But it also shows you who you are." I met her gaze, seeing not just a lawyer, but someone who understood. "Thanks, Mary." Outside, the rain had stopped. A sliver of sun broke through the clouds, glinting off the wet pavement. I stepped onto the sidewalk, my shoulders lighter. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could win. The library smelled of old paper and wax polish, its high windows casting soft light over wooden tables. Mary and I sat in a corner, a laptop glowing between us, stacks of public records and printouts fanned out like a deck of cards. My fingers tapped the edge of a folder, restless. I'd spent days replaying James and Emma's betrayal, but now, with Mary's sharp eyes scanning documents, I felt a shift. "We were hunting." "Found something," Mary said, her voice low. She turned the laptop toward me, an Instagram post loading on the screen. Emma, in a crimson dress, posed in front of a sleek White House, their house. The caption read, "Living the dream we earned." I snorted. "Earned? Right. Scroll down, Mary said, her pen poised over a notepad. I did, and there she was again, Emma at a vineyard. Emma with a new purse, Emma in Paris. Each post screamed money they didn't have. She's spending like there's no tomorrow, Mary muttered. And James is letting her. I leaned back, adjusting my glasses. The truth was coming into focus. James always cared about appearances, I said. Even as a kid, he'd sulk if his sneakers weren't the right brand. Public shame? That's his nightmare. Mary nodded, jotting a note. And Emma's worse. Her whole life's on this app. One crack in that perfect image, and she'll crumble. She flipped through a stack of financial records, her brow furrowing. Here. James took out a second mortgage last year. He's drowning in debt. No wonder they're coming after you. I picked up a credit report, the numbers stark. Late payments, maxed out cards, a car loan in default. My son, the big shot, was a house of cards. He hid this from me, I said, my voice tight. All those dinners, bragging about his deals. Lies. Mary's eyes softened, but her tone stayed firm. They're vulnerable, John. We can use this. But we need to be smart. No mistakes. I nodded, my mind racing. For years, I'd let James's charm blind me, but not anymore. I glanced at the library around us, students typing, a young couple whispering over a book. It reminded me of simpler times, when James would beg me to read him stories. That boy was gone. The man he'd become deserved what was coming. We spent hours digging. Mary cross-referenced bank statements with Emma's posts, matching dates to purchases, a $3,000 handbag, a $10,000 vacation. I searched public records, finding liens on their house, whispers of unpaid taxes. Each discovery fueled me, my doubt replaced by a cold thrill. They thought they could bully me. They'd learn. Mary closed her laptop, stretching. We've got enough to start, she said. Their weaknesses are clear, James's pride, Emma's vanity. We'll hit them where it hurts, but not yet. I've got an idea, but it needs time. I raised an eyebrow. Care to share? She smiled, sly. Patience, John. You'll like it. She gathered her papers, her confidence infectious. Go home. Think about what scares them most. We'll meet tomorrow. I drove back through the suburbs, the streets quiet under a gray sky. My house was dark when I pulled up, the porch light flickering. Inside, I dropped my keys on the counter, the silence heavy. The lawsuit papers still sat on my table, but they didn't intimidate me anymore. I crossed to my desk, pulling out a notepad. Mary's words echoed, what scares them most? Shame. Exposure. Losing their shiny, fake world. I sat, a blank page before me. My pen hovered, then pressed down, words forming slowly. An anonymous letter to their creditors, maybe, or their neighbors. Something to stir the pot, to make them squirm. I pictured James's face, pale with panic, Emma's perfect smile cracking. My lips twitched, a grim satisfaction settling in. I wrote, the pen scratching in the quiet. Each word felt like a step toward justice. I wasn't just fighting their lawsuit. I was rewriting their story. The page filled, and for the first time in years, I felt powerful, holding not just paper, but their fate. The desk lamp cast a dim glow over my kitchen table, the only light in the house. I held the letter, my eyes scanning each line for the third time. Every word was precise, anonymous, a needle aimed at James's fragile empire. Concerns regarding financial stability, pattern of missed payments, potential fraud. I'd spent hours crafting it, my hands steady but my pulse racing. This was it, the first move. I folded the paper, sliding it into an unmarked envelope. My fingers brushed the seal, hesitating. A memory flickered, James at 12, his eyes wide as I taught him to ride a bike, his laughter filling the driveway. I shook it off. That boy was a ghost. The man he'd become didn't deserve my mercy. I stepped outside, the night air sharp. The mailbox stood at the curb, its red flag glinting under a street lamp. I opened it, the hinge creaking, and dropped the letter in. The wind caught the flag as I raised it, a faint whistle cutting the silence. It felt right, like fate carrying my justice forward. 2 days later, I met Mary at a coffee shop downtown. The place buzzed with chatter, the smell of espresso thick. She slid into the booth across from me, her eyes bright. "It worked," she said, keeping her voice low. "The letter triggered a review. James's credit lines are frozen. No new loans, no wiggle room." I leaned forward, a grin tugging at my lips. "They know?" "Oh, they know," Mary said, sipping her latte. "My source says James is panicking. Emma's furious, blaming him for everything. They're cracking, John." I pictured it, their glass-walled house, James pacing, Emma's voice sharp. My chest warmed, a cold satisfaction spreading. "What's she saying?" I asked. Mary smirked. She called him incompetent. Said he's ruining their life. He's begging creditors for extensions, but they're not budging. I nodded, stirring my coffee. The spoon clinked against the mug, steady like my resolve. "Good. Let them feel it." Mary's smile faded slightly. "This is just the start, John. They'll fight back. We need to stay ahead." She slid a folder toward me, her notes neat inside. "Keep your phone close. They might reach out." I drove home, the city lights blurring past. My house was quiet, the lawsuit papers now tucked in a drawer, out of sight. I felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I hadn't named. The letter had done its job, but Mary was right, this was only the beginning. I poured a glass of water, the faucet's hum filling the silence, and sat at the table, replaying her words. They'll fight back. That night, I barely slept, my mind buzzing. I imagined James's desperation, Emma's rage. Their perfect world was fraying, and I'd pulled the first thread. By midnight, I was at my desk again, sketching ideas for the next step. Mary's plan, whatever it was, would be bigger. I trusted her. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up the dark. A text from James, "We need to talk. Now." My heart kicked, not with fear, but with anticipation. He was rattled. Good. I set the phone down, my fingers hovering over the reply button. Let him wait. I leaned back, the chair creaking. The text glowed, a challenge, a crack in their armor. I stared at it, knowing they'd felt my first blow. The roar of James's SUV broke the morning quiet, tires crunching on my gravel driveway. I stood at the kitchen sink, my phone still in hand from his text last night. We need to talk. Now. I hadn't replied. Let him stew. The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. My pulse quickened, but I set my jaw. I wasn't the man who'd cowered when they'd slapped me with a lawsuit. Not anymore. I opened the door, the cold air rushing in. James loomed, his face red, eyes wild. Emma stood behind him, her arms crossed, a silk scarf fluttering in the wind. What the hell did you do? James snapped, stepping forward. I didn't budge, my hand tight on the doorframe. Come in, I said, my voice even. Say what you need to. They pushed past me, James's boots thudding, Emma's heels clicking. My living room felt small again, their presence like a storm. A neighbor across the street peered from her porch, curious. Good. Let them see. James spun on me, jabbing a finger. You tipped off the creditors, didn't you? My accounts are locked. They're auditing everything. I raised an eyebrow, leaning against the couch. Sounds like a you problem, James. Maybe live within your means. Emma gasped, her eyes narrowing. How dare you? Her voice cracked, theatrical tears welling. We're your family. You're ruining us. She dabbed her eyes, but I caught her glance at the hall mirror, checking her reflection. Pathetic. Ruin you? I said, stepping closer. You sued me for $500,000 I don't owe. You started this. James laughed, bitter. You think you're clever? Our lawyer's adding charges: emotional distress, defamation. You'll lose everything. His voice shook, betraying his panic. I crossed my arms, my karma shield. Do what you want. I'm not afraid. Emma's tears vanished, her face twisting. You're a selfish old man, she hissed. You could have helped us, but you chose this. She grabbed James's arm. Let's go. He's not worth it. They stormed out, the door slamming. Their SUV peeled away, gravel flying. I stood still. My heart pounding but my resolve ironclad. They thought they could scare me. They were wrong. I met Mary that afternoon in her office, the air warm with the scent of coffee. She leaned over her desk, a file open. They're rattled, she said, her eyes sharp. My contact says their lawyer's pushing for a quick settlement. They're scared you'll expose more. I nodded, sinking into a chair. They came to my house. Threatened to escalate the lawsuit. Mary frowned, tapping her pen. They're desperate. That's good, but dangerous. We need to be careful. She slid a folder toward me. I've got something, serious leverage. Not ready to show you yet, but it's big. I raised an eyebrow. How big? She smiled, sly. Big enough to make them regret crossing you. Trust me. She leaned back, softer now. You held your ground today, John. That's not easy. I shrugged, but her words warmed me. Felt good, telling them no. It should, she said, pouring me tea from a thermos. The steam curled up, calming. We're close. Stay sharp. I drove home as dusk settled, the suburbs quiet. My house was dark, but it felt like a fortress now, not a cage. I locked the door, my eyes drifting to the folder Mary had sent me home with preliminary evidence, she'd said. I sat at the table, flipping it open. Bank records, emails, fragments of their lies. Each page was a weapon, and I was learning how to wield them. I turned another page, my eyes narrowing. Every line brought me closer to their downfall. The park was still, the late February air crisp, carrying the scent of damp earth. Mary and I sat on a weathered bench, a manila folder resting between us like a loaded gun. Leaves skittered across the path, and I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting someone to be watching. My hands were steady, but my pulse thrummed. We were close, closer than ever to turning James's world upside down. Mary opened the folder, her fingers quick but careful. This is it, John, she said, her voice low, almost swallowed by the wind. James fudged his income on the mortgage application. Inflated his salary by nearly double. These documents prove it. She slid a page toward me, a bank statement with numbers that didn't add up. I adjusted my glasses, scanning the figures. My throat tightened, not from shock, but from a grim thrill. He lied to the bank, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. This could ruin him. It could, Mary said, her eyes sharp. If we play it right. We hold this for the trial, let them think they're safe. Then we drop it. She tapped the page, a faint smile curling her lips. But we can start smaller. Shake him now, make him sloppy. I leaned forward, the bench creaking. How? His job, she said. He's a sales manager, right? All about trust. If his boss gets a tip anonymous, of course, about his debts, his lies, it'll rattle him. Maybe cost him his position. I nodded, the idea sparking. James, with his tailored suits and fake confidence, lived for his title. Strip that away, and he'd crumble. He'd hate being seen as a fraud, I said. Always did. Even in high school, he'd lie about failing tests, say he aced them. Mary chuckled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Sounds like a plan. We'll send a letter to his company. Nothing traceable. Just enough to start whispers. She paused, her gaze softening. You okay with this, John? It's a big step. I met her eyes, feeling the weight of her question. Was I okay? A month ago, I'd have hesitated, clung to the ghost of my son. Now, I saw only the man who'd sued me, who'd spit on my life's work. I'm more than okay, I said, my voice firm. I want him to feel it. She reached out, her hand brushing my arm. Good. We're in this together. Her touch lingered, warm, and for a moment, the park felt less cold. We spent an hour strategizing, our voices hushed. Mary sketched the letters outline vague but pointed, hinting at James's financial troubles without naming sources. I added details, remembering how he'd bragged about bonuses he never earned. Each word we planned was a brick in the wall we'd build around him. But Mary was clear, the real blow, the forged documents, would wait. Timing's everything, she said. Closing the folder. We'll save the knockout for court. I stood, slipping the folder into my bag. It felt heavier, like a secret ready to burst. I'll draft the letter tonight, I said. You'll check it? Always, she said, standing too. She grinned, a spark of mischief in her eyes. I love a good detective novel. This is better. I laughed, the sound surprising me. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive, not just angry. We parted ways, Mary heading to her car, me walking the long path home. The park faded behind me, but her words stayed. We're in this together. At home, the house was quiet, the only sound the hum of my fridge. I set my bag down, the folder peeking out. My desk waited, a single lamp casting a warm glow. I poured coffee, the steam curling, and sat, opening my laptop. The blank screen stared back, but I wasn't daunted. I began typing, each keystroke deliberate. To whom it may concern, concerns about James Kelly's financial reliability. The words flowed, sharp and cold, like a blade. I paused, glancing at a photo on the shelf, James at 16, holding a fishing rod, grinning. I taught him to cast that summer. My chest ached, but I turned away, back to the screen. That boy was gone. This was for me now, for the life I'd earned. I typed on, my heart pounding with purpose. Each letter brought me closer to the moment James would know what loss felt like. The coffee was cold, but I didn't care. My laptop screen glowed in the dim kitchen, the anonymous email account open. I'd sent the letter to James's company yesterday, a single click that felt like pulling a trigger. Now, I refreshed the page, waiting for news. My fingers drummed the table, the rhythm matching my pulse. I knew it had worked, Mary's call this morning confirmed it. James was unraveling. I stood, stretching, the chair scraping the floor. My house was still, the clock ticking past noon. I'd spent the morning pacing, replaying Mary's words, they demoted him, John. No warning. He's a junior rep now, half the pay. I pictured James in his glass-walled office, his swagger gone, colleagues whispering. The thought warmed me, a quiet triumph. I drove to Mary's office, the city humming around me. Her building was familiar now, the elevators hum a steady comfort. Inside, she sat at her desk, a stack of papers beside her. You look pleased, she said, raising an eyebrow. Shouldn't I be? I said, settling into a chair. He's falling apart. She nodded, sliding a notepad toward me. My source says he's a mess. Showed up late, snapped at his boss. Then went home and fought with Emma. She leaned back, her eyes sharp. She's livid. Called him a failure, said he's dragging her down. I smirked, but a flicker of unease stirred. What's she doing about it? Mary's smile faded. That's the thing. James is broken, but Emma's different. She's cornered, and that makes her dangerous. We need to watch her. She tapped her pen, thoughtful. Still, you did it, John. First blood. I exhaled, the weight of her words settling. First blood, yes, but the war wasn't over. I glanced at the photo on her desk, a dog, tail blurred in motion. It grounded me, a reminder of her warmth. What's next? I asked. We keep pushing, she said. But carefully. I'm working on Emma. Got something in the works. She slid a folder across the desk, sealed. This is for her. Don't open it yet. You'll know when. I took it, the paper cool against my fingers. You love your secrets, don't you? She laughed, soft. Keeps things interesting. Her eyes held mine, a spark of something more than partnership. I looked away, my neck warm. Back home, I set the folder on my table, unopened. The radio played low, a news segment about corporate audits. I smiled, perfect timing. James's world was shrinking, his pride in tatters. I imagined him now, in his sleek house, Emma's voice cutting through the air. I didn't see their fight, but Mary's source painted it clear. James, slumped at their marble island, a glass of whiskey in hand. Emma, pacing, her heels clicking. You swore you had this handled, she'd screamed, her voice raw. Now we're a joke. It's not over, James had shot back, slamming his glass down. I'll fix it. I always do. She'd laughed, cold. You? You're nothing without me. Get it together, or I'm done. The word stung, even secondhand. Their marriage was cracking, and I'd driven the wedge. I poured a glass of water, the faucet's hiss steadying me. My phone buzzed, Mary, with a screenshot. James's company had posted about restructuring. Code for his demotion. Public. Perfect. I sat, the folder still sealed. Emma's turn was coming, and I could feel it, like a storm on the horizon. I opened it, just a crack, glimpsing papers inside. Each one promised another blow, this time for her. The cafe buzzed with morning chatter, the air thick with the scent of roasted beans. I sat in a corner booth, my laptop open, a fake social media account glowing on the screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, cautious. I triple-checked the post, every word a dart aimed at Emma's perfect facade. Mary's evidence was damning. Emma had siphoned company funds for personal splurges, receipts buried in her work account. Now, I'd expose her, anonymously, to her precious online world. I glanced around. A barista frothed milk, a couple laughed over pastries. No one watched. I hit post, the screen flashing. Concerns about Emma Kelly's ethics at Horizon Marketing. Misused funds. See proof. A link to scanned receipts followed, untraceable. My heart kicked, but I leaned back, sipping my tea. It was done. By noon, the post had spread. Comments piled up, colleagues, clients, strangers. Is this real? She seemed so professional. Check her Instagram, it's all there. I refreshed, watching the numbers climb. Emma's carefully curated life was unraveling, and I felt a rush, sharp and clean. I met Mary at her office that afternoon, the folder she'd given me tucked under my arm. She was at her desk, scrolling on her phone, a grin spreading when she saw me. You're a natural, John, she said, setting the phone down. Her post said 500 shares. She's panicking. I sat, the leather chair creaking. What's she doing? Mary leaned forward, her voice low. Tried to delete it, but it's too late. She posted a video, teary, rambling, claiming it's a lie. Made it worse. Her boss called her in. She's on thin ice. She slid her phone toward me, the video paused. Emma's face, blotchy, her mascara smudged. I didn't play it. I didn't need to. Good, I said, my voice cold. Let her squirm. I pictured her in her sleek office, her confidence shattered, colleagues whispering. Her Instagram, once a shrine to her ego, now a battleground of accusations. It felt right, like balancing a scale. Mary's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. She's not done, though. People like her lash out when cornered. We need to be ready. She tapped the folder I'd brought. This was just the start. We've got more. I nodded, my fingers brushing the folder's edge. How'd you get this stuff, anyway? She smirked. I dig deep. Old habit. Her tone was light, but her eyes held a story she didn't share. I didn't push. I trusted her. We talked strategy, her voice steady, mine eager. Emma's fall was sweet, but James was still out there, licking his wounds. They'd fight back, Mary warned, and I felt it, a prickle of unease beneath my triumph. I drove home, the city fading into dusk. My house was quiet, the air heavy with the scent of polished wood. I set the folder down, my tea gone cold. The post was still live, comments now in the thousands. I allowed myself a smile. Emma was learning what exposure felt like. I didn't see her reaction, but Mary's updates filled the gaps. Emma, in her pristine living room, screaming into her phone. It's slander, she'd yelled to a colleague. I'll sue whoever did this. Her hands shook, her perfect nails chipped. James, silent, watched from the couch, his own humiliation raw. Fix it, he'd muttered, but she'd ignored him, dialing her boss, her voice breaking. My phone buzzed, snapping me back. An unknown number. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. The room felt too still, the silence pressing in. I let it ring, my breath shallow. The call stopped, then started again, insistent. I picked up the phone, my grip tight, the quiet now heavy, like the calm before a storm. The envelope lay on my kitchen table, its crisp edges taunting me. I'd found it in the mailbox that morning, the law firm's logo blaring in gold. My fingers hesitated, then tore it open, the paper rustling like a warning. The letter was cold, formal. John Kelly, you are accused of defamation and slander, immediate cessation, damages sought. James and Emma were hitting back, their new lawyer promising to bury me. My pulse raced, but I set the letter down, breathing slow. They weren't winning. Not yet. My phone buzzed, James's name flashing. I let it ring twice, then answered, bracing myself. You think you're smart, Dad? His voice was sharp, venomous. Spreading lies, ruining my life? I'll make sure everyone knows what a bitter old man you are. I leaned against the counter, the cold tile grounding me. You started this, James. Not me. He laughed, harsh. You're done. Our lawyer's the best. You'll lose your house, your savings, everything. His words were a blade, but they didn't cut like they once would have. Try it, I said, my voice steady. I'm not afraid. I hung up, my hand trembling but my resolve firm. The phone buzzed again, a text from Emma. How could you do this to us, John? We're family. Stop before you destroy James's future. A photo followed, James at 6, grinning in a baseball cap. My chest tightened, but I deleted it. She was playing dirty. It wouldn't work. I drove to Mary's office, the city a blur of March gray. Her door was open, the air warm with coffee and paper. She stood at her desk, papers strewn like battle plans. Got the letter? She asked, her eyes sharp. I nodded, handing it over. And a call from James. He's furious. Emma's trying guilt trips. Mary scanned the letter, her lips pursing. They've got a big shot now, Harold Grayson. He's good, but sloppy when cornered. She set the letter down, meeting my gaze. They're scared, John. This is a bluff to make you back off. I sank into a chair, the leather creaking. It's working. A little. My voice was quiet, honest. The weight of their threats pressed hard. She crossed to me, her hand resting on my shoulder. You're stronger than you think. We've got them. Our evidence is ironclad. Her touch was steady, her voice a lifeline. Let's prep for court. Tonight. We worked late, the office glowing under fluorescent lights. Mary spread documents across the table, James's forged mortgage papers, Emma's embezzlement receipts. She walked me through our strategy, her words precise, her confidence contagious. We'll hit them hard, she said. Grayson won't see it coming. I nodded, flipping through pages. A memory surfaced, 1995, me skipping sleep to finish James's science fair project, his smile when he won. I'd been weak then, too giving. Not now. They underestimated me, I said, my voice low. Big mistake. Mary smiled, soft but fierce. Damn right. She poured tea, the steam curling between us. You ready for this, John? More than ever, I said, meeting her eyes. Her belief in me was a spark, igniting something I'd buried long ago. I got home past midnight, the house dark. I didn't sleep, my mind replaying Mary's plan. By dawn, I was up, the trial looming. I stood before my mirror, my suit pressed, my hands steady as I knotted my tie. The reflection wasn't the tired man I'd been. It was someone ready to fight. The courtroom smelled of polish and tension, its marble floor gleaming under harsh lights. I sat beside Mary, my hands gripping a folder, my heart a steady drum. The wooden benches creaked as people settled, strangers, a few familiar faces from the neighborhood. James and Emma sat across the aisle, their lawyer, Grayson, whispering in their ears. James's jaw was tight, Emma's eyes darting. They looked smaller here, stripped of their bravado. The judge entered, her robe swishing, and the room hushed. Mary squeezed my hand under the table, her touch quick but warm. We've got this, she murmured. I nodded, my throat dry but my resolve iron. Grayson stood first, his voice smooth, accusing me of slander, painting James and Emma as victims. I kept my eyes on the judge, her face unreadable. Then Mary rose, her presence commanding. Your Honor, she began. Her voice clear, the plaintiffs have built their case on lies. We have proof. She presented the evidence with surgical precision, James's forged mortgage documents, inflated income statements, Emma's siphoned company funds. Each page projected on a screen, undeniable. The room stirred, whispers rippling. James shifted, his knuckles white. Emma's hand flew to her mouth, her rings glinting. Grayson objected, his tone sharp, but the judge waved him off. Continue, Miss Thompson. Mary did, her words cutting. These are not errors, Your Honor. They're deliberate fraud. She turned to James, her gaze piercing. Mr. Kelly lied to secure a loan he couldn't afford. Mrs. Kelly stole from her employer to fund her lifestyle. She paused, letting the weight settle. They sued John Kelly to cover their deceit. James slammed his fist on the table, his voice breaking. That's a lie. The judge's gavel cracked, silencing him. Emma whispered frantically to Grayson, her face pale, but he shook his head, helpless. I watched, my chest tight but calm. Their empire was crumbling, and I felt no pity, only a cold satisfaction. Mary sat, her hand brushing mine again. Your turn, she whispered. I nodded, ready to speak if needed, but her performance was enough. The judge deliberated briefly, her voice firm when she returned. The plaintiff's claims are dismissed. Evidence suggests fraud by James and Emma Kelly, which will be referred for investigation. She struck her gavel, the sound final. James stood, his chair scraping, his eyes wild. This isn't over, he shouted, but the bailiff moved closer. Emma buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Grayson gathered his papers, defeated. The room buzzed, but I stayed still, Mary's steady presence beside me. Outside, the air was sharp, the sky clear. Mary touched my arm, her eyes soft. You did it, John. But this isn't just about winning. It's about what's next. I nodded, clutching the folder, its weight a symbol of my fight. The courthouse steps stretched before me, each one lighter than the last. I took the first, feeling like I'd stepped into a life I hadn't yet imagined. The restaurant glowed with candlelight, the scent of garlic and wine wrapping around us. Mary sat across from me, her glass raised, her smile wide. To justice, she said, her voice warm. I clinked my glass against hers, the sound sharp and clear. The trial was over, James and Emma defeated, and for the first time in years, I felt free. We were at a small Italian place in Chicago, red checkered tablecloths and soft jazz setting the mood. My suit jacket hung on the chair, my tie loosened. Mary's laughter broke the hum of conversation around us as she recounted Grayson's face in court. He looked like he'd swallowed a lemon, she said, her eyes sparkling. I grinned, cutting into my lasagna. You were unstoppable. They never had a chance. My voice was light, but my chest was full relief, pride, something deeper. The weight of James's betrayal, Emma's cruelty, had lifted, leaving space for something new. Mary sipped her wine, her gaze softening. You were the one who kept going, John. That took guts. She paused, her fingers tracing the stem of her glass. I know what it's like, you know. Fighting for yourself after someone breaks you. My divorce, it was ugly. I leaned forward, curious. She'd never shared this. What happened? She shrugged, but her eyes were distant. He cheated, lied, took half my savings. I rebuilt, but it changed me. Made me see who I could trust. Her gaze met mine, steady. Like you. Her words settled, warm and heavy. I nodded, my throat tight. I lived for James. Every late night, every missed chance for him. Now, I'm done. I paused, the truth spilling out. I'm selling the house. Maybe traveling. Seeing the world I ignored. Mary's eyes lit up. Where to? Anywhere, I said, laughing. Italy, maybe. Or Greece. Somewhere with sun. A memory flashed, 1980s, working double shifts, saving for James's school, dreaming of Rome but never going. I'd sacrificed too much. No more. You should, Mary said, leaning in. And maybe I'll join you. For a week, at least. I've always wanted to see Florence. Her tone was light. But her eyes held a question, a spark of something more. I smiled, my heart kicking. I'd like that. The words felt bold, new. Mary wasn't just my lawyer anymore. She was my friend, maybe something else. The thought warmed me more than the wine. We talked for hours, the restaurant emptying around us. I remembered moments, 1990, buying James his first car, my own dreams deferred, 2000, skipping a concert to pay his tuition. Each choice had built a cage I'd only now escaped. Mary listened, her hand brushing mine, her laughter pulling me forward. I called a realtor the next day, the decision firm. The house, with its creaky floors and faded photos, was my past. I packed boxes, each one lighter. A postcard from James, tucked in a drawer, caught my eye. Thanks, Dad. I set it aside, no anger left. He was gone, and I was here. By evening, I stood on my porch, the sunset painting the sky gold. The realtor's sign was up, the house ready to sell. My keys dangled in my hand, cool against my palm. I looked out, the horizon wide, promising more than I'd ever dared to dream. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.